Welcome to the Nuzlocking Tips and Tricks Guide. My name is Landa, professional Nuz failure, and this is Walrush. So, for today's video I wanted to talk about all the important stuff I think someone has to keep in mind while playing a Nuzlocke. But, Landa, you might be wondering, what the hell is that? Nuzlocke is a popular Pokémon challenge with two main mechanics. Pokémon die permanently when they lose all their HP, and you're only able to catch the first Pokémon you encounter in every new place you visit. Also, if you wipe out, it's game over, which I think is the natural conclusion of permadeath. Although I think these are the two core mechanics for Nuzlocking, people usually personalize the rules that they play by to make the experience fun for them. I play with these rules, for example. I'll put them in the description. There are also a lot of variants of the standard Nuzlocke challenge. Random locks are really popular, Souling lock is a pretty cool concept. We made a video where we invented the roulette lock and that was really fun. But either way, the common factor between all these challenges is that they ramp up the difficulty of these video games by a lot. So that's why today I wanted to tell you what I consider important to face Nuzlocking, earn all the gym badges and conquering the Pokémon League and get your name in the Hall of Fame. Pokemon's early game usually spans from the time you pick a starter until gym badge number 3 or 4. It is essential to be extremely careful on this segment, as low-level Pokémon can easily be taken out with a critical hit or a super effective move that you didn't think the enemy Pokémon had. This is also the segment where people unintentionally kill some Pokémon encounters, but we'll get there. Overall, the better your early game is, the more consistent your late game will be. The snowball effect is pretty much real in Pokémon Nuzlocking, so as general advice, I'd say be sure to apply all the next tips and tricks, especially during the early game. A critical hit is a random effect that basically makes a move hit harder. How harder? Well, double.
Or 1.5 generations because like anything resembling difficulty has to be removed from Pokémon games.
It is important to note that critical hits also have side effects that many people don't know. For example, they ignore all stats boost, so if a Pokémon has its attack reduced to half, a critical hit won't double that damage output, but quadruple it. That is why playing around critical hits is so important. You must keep track of how much damage a critical hit move would make to your Pokémon, and every time you can, switch out whenever your Pokémon is in crit range. Of course, there will be times where that will not be possible, and you'll have to leave your fate in the hands of the Goddess of Fortune, but playing around the crit will lower the chances of a sudden death in your team drastically. One of the most common things that happen in Nuzlocke is unintentionally killing your first or second Pokémon encounter. At this point, Pokémon are still level 3, 4 or 5 and their HP is extremely low, so it is not rare that a random critical hit accidentally kills them while you are attempting to lower their HP to capture them. The thing is, most of the time the catch rate on these low level Pokémon is pretty high, so there is no need to risk it and you should definitely try to catch them without attacking. It will work most of the time and it will make for a better early game, so I really encourage you to not attack your first encounters in order to catch them. In Pokémon, there are a lot of gimmick moves that have certain effects you must know in order to avoid a preventable death. Moves such as Counter or Mirror Coat, that reflect double damage of what you inflicted, are really dangerous, and you should always keep in mind which Pokémon have access to this kind of moves in order to expect it, and, might I say, counter them. On the other side of the coin, there are the movements which are super useful to use against the other Pokémon trainers. Movements such as Fake Out, Protect or Encore will make your journey much easier, as you'll be able to always chip in some damage or see what moves an enemy Pokémon has and then trap them in a certain move. Movements that boost your stats are also really useful, and usually setting them up can make fights quite a breeze. Keep in mind that you should keep track of distinct Pokémon abilities as well. This one might seem obvious, but most deaths Pokémon trainers suffer through Nuzlockes are either because of being careless or being underleveled. Training your Pokémon or rare candying them, either place is fine, do whatever suits you best, is really important. Keep in mind that if you rare candy your Pokémons, they won't gain any EVs, though. It is fun to keep things challenging, but most of the time some battles are unwinnable because of this, so try to keep a proper balance and use the gym level caps as a guide. Although some players ban healing items in their Nuzlockes, remember that you can always equip items so they are used in battle by your team. Berries are really useful to heal status effects or recover some health, and there is also a wide range of items that boost your chances of getting a critical hit, moving first, dealing more damage with a certain type of move, etc. While you advance through the different routes, towns, forests, caves, and cities of the different Pokémon regions, you will see that certain trainer types have kind of a theme for the Pokémon they use. Bug catchers use bug types, obviously, Mountaineers use rock-type Pokémon and the occasional matchup, or Ace trainers have really tough teams, for example. Use this to your advantage and prepare every battle keeping in mind what kind of Pokémon the next trainer is going to have. It will make everything a lot easier. I will also say as an extra tip that most double battles can be transformed into single battles if you talk to each trainer separately. Moving on, sometimes people forget that your team composition is not set in stone, so feel free to change it to optimize each section of the game. If I have ahead a route full of Fisherman and a Water-type gym, maybe keeping Graveler or Onix is not the best idea, for example. Try to balance your roster and do not be afraid to go back to the Pokémon Center to make the changes that you think are necessary to win. This also works backwards. If you think a Pokémon is not ready to be in your team yet, but they will come in handy a couple gyms later, then keep it safe in your PC until the time is right. And finally, the last tip may be a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you must face that sacrificing Pokémon is necessary to ensure avoiding further losses. It is difficult to assess correctly when sacrificing a Pokémon is the best play, but I'll say this. You have not only to think of the current fight, but also what can that Pokémon do for you during the rest of the game. Sometimes, Pokémon that can keep up after mid-game can go out with a heroic last effort and guarantee a spot on your personal Hall of Fame. So, that's every useful tip I can think of after attempting to Nuzlocke Pokémon games for a couple times now. If you made it this far into the video, you are more handsome than Mr. Handsome. Anyways, I hope these were useful to you. I will now humbly ask you to subscribe to Walrush for more content, like the video if you enjoyed it, to comment your thoughts about Nuzlocking and sharing the video with anyone who might be interested. Until we meet again,